Hey, Tom, welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you being here. I got Tom Driscoll here, our market VP for the California market. Welcome, buddy. I
How
was
are you?
excited. I'm doing
I
good. I was
cannot believe
excited.
you and I are doing a podcast.
I know, right? If you had told me this 20 years ago, I'd say there's no way. What's a podcast, right?
If you told me 20 years ago you were going to allow us to record what we said, I'd think
Yeah,
you were crazy. Right.
I know, right? Isn't that dangerous having both of us on here with recording? It's crazy. Hey, before I start, I know that, did you have your Pilates class this morning, by the way?
Yoga.
Oh, yoga, hot yoga?
No, well, it's normal yoga, but I make it hot yoga by the time I'm done. Yeah. No, I do. I do it. I try to do it every Monday through Friday. I try to do it every morning in my living room. Yep. Gotta
So
love
that,
YouTube. Yeah.
oh, thanks for
It's
YouTube.
safer for me to do at home. You don't want to scare the people. Right. So I stay in the sanctity of my own home while I'm in the downward facing dog position. Yeah.
Good God. Now, let me let that ruminate in my brain for a second there, watching you in a skin tight, leotard with, yeah, no.
Well, no. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Not get carried away. Right.
Exactly. All right. So before we get started, I want to kind of take us back to where you started before Bunzel. Tell us about that, because I think you had a very interesting life before.
You mean since out of college?
Yeah. Well, and first of all, were you glad, and did you ever think you'd ever graduate from SCSU?
I think they asked me to leave, actually. I was a great student in high school, and I was a terrible student in college, honestly. Did not enjoy the experience of being in class at all in college. I still to this day don't understand why. But yet, after I left college, I was kind of bumming around looking for something to do, and I met a guy who was a trader on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange in Los Angeles, and he was about to move to San Francisco. And he said, Driscoll, he goes, you're perfect for this. He goes, you got to come with me. So I moved up to San Francisco, and I started working on the exchange, and soon turned into an options trader. It's called a market maker back at the time. And you might have seen the guys in the funny colored coats screaming and yelling. Well, that was me. And it's a combination of being louder than everyone in the room and being good at numbers and having a good time and understanding human nature. And it turned into a great experience.
Let me see. Speaking loud and knowing numbers, that's right up your alley, right? Yeah, one and two.
Yeah,
exactly.
There you go. Yeah, that's me.
I mean, that had to be crazy, right? I mean, to be on the floor and listen to that.
Once I figured out what it was, it took a while, but once it clicked, then it was like that movie with Russell Crowe where all the numbers are floating around. That's really how it became. And it was so much fun. Oh my God, I didn't deserve to have that much fun. Then I tended bar and worked the door at night at an Irish bar a couple of nights a week to meet women. Yeah.
That was probably the most enchanting part of your whole career so far, right?
Well, it was in the second half of the 80s when the Niners were good. So it was fun. We had a lot of fun. Yes. Try not to smile too much. It was a great time to live in San Francisco.
Absolutely. And you also worked for Rykoff for a while, right? In food service.
Yeah, I left the stock exchange and I went to work for Kellogg's, actually. I did a very brief stint as a sales rep for Kellogg's. Great job. Kind of sells itself. I mean, where else are you going to go? And I got somehow, roped into taking over a procurement role. I was a procurement manager, and I had that job before I knew what procurement meant, actually. Yeah, purchasing manager. When I was 27, I was a purchasing manager at Kraft, an $80 million distributor. And then I went on to be the purchasing and marketing manager at Rykoff, about $300 million. And that was in $1992. It was huge.
Right.
I still to this day don't know why I did it. Honestly, purchasing is, if you look at our business, it is the hardest and the most thankless job that we have, and the most important. You either have too much or you have too little. Trying to guess what guys are going to sell, it's impossible. It really is. Yeah.
I mean, and you're absolutely right. Unless you have a crystal ball every day of your life. I mean, especially what we just went through with the pandemic. I mean, my God, how tough is that? I mean, that's craziness right there.
Well, in an ideal world, when the manufacturer has inventory and there's trucks to put it on, and we can place the PO, then it's still hard for us, and we still struggle to get the 98.5% fill. So you take away all those things that we used to think were constant, and now they're a guess. You know, when Pactiv says that they don't have enough people to run the machines, you're not going to get trades. And who would have ever thought we'd be in that position?
Yeah, exactly. For many trades we sell, yes.
Yeah.
As we so moving on to about 1999, when I think it was 1999 or 2000.
August of 98.
98. Oh my God.
Yep.
That's the first time I met with you, and you came down to Bunzel Tracy at the time. You met with Lonnie and I, the late Lonnie Brown. Love that guy, our mentor. Yeah. And here you were sitting across from us and talking about this crazy idea about, hey, let's get into the food processing division. Yeah. Little did we know, right?
Yep. You know, in 98, we added 7 people to the 7 regions, you know, 1 in each region. And we went out and kind of the cheerleaders. As you well know, after doing it for the last 20 years, it's a thankless position because nobody reports directly to you. And
right.
You're almost like an outside broker's rep where you're trying to cajole and prod and lead people down the path to sell processor. And what we created, you know, instead of having specialists out here in the West, everybody was a processor rep. You know, the old expression, every Marine is a rifleman. If you're a salesman, you're a salesman. You can sell supermarket, you can sell retail, you can sell food processing. And we're not asking you back in the day to know the intricacies of forming and non-forming film on a multivac machine. We wanted you to sell the same items you're selling in your bakeries and supermarkets into the bakeries that handle the processor. The business was leaving the store, and we needed to chase it upstream. And out here, we became wildly successful. I think now we've only been passed by the Northeast, who has a much more focused and concerted, you know, effort to drive processor sales. It must be easy because you and I figured it out, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Thank God, huh? Yeah. You know, you made an interesting point. You know, back if you think about 1998, 1999, around that area, I think that's when Bunzel kind of did this shift to culminate the company more to be diverse in what we carry and diversify into other markets. Because if you flash forward, you know, I want to skip forward quickly here to where we are today. Had we not got into and brought experts like you in on food processor and food service and Jansan and retail, with the pandemic, immediately food service, all that business shifted over back to supermarket where we are today. I mean, that's a stronghold for us. I mean, to think back then that was something we needed 10 years in the making or whatever it was, you know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, we diversified. There's no question about it. Or you're right, we would have been in big trouble. You know, it's the first time in 20 years the supermarket guys were the cool kids the last 2 years,
right?
Because we were open. Our supermarkets were open, and we sell more items that are universal across our customer base. And if you can get a chicken roaster, you're going to sell a chicken roaster to each one of your supermarkets. But in food service, I think the products are a little more specific once you get outside of portion cups and things like that. And then the recyclability piece is much bigger on the food service side. But imagine where we'd be without retail.
Right.
Our retail folks kept us alive, and were wildly, wildly successful the early part of the pandemic. And I'll tell you, I owe them a lot for what they did for us out here on the West Coast.
Yeah. And another good point too, you talk about our ag division too, who, you know, because that's seriously all that product in the ag shows up into the supermarket, right? Or in food service. Yeah. And wow, how rounded. And, you know, and if you take apart, you know, every one of the leaders from you on up to where we have in those segments. Okay. So we have market VPs who are experts in their market, supposedly, right? And then you have the regional vice presidents who are experts in their whole region. When you add up all the leadership and how smart, I know what you're thinking, you know, we've got some of the most brilliant people, and I don't use that term loosely, brilliant people in this industry, because we were able to shift very quickly during that pandemic, right?
Oh, one thing about our regionals, our senior vice president, like Jeff McElroy, Jeff's job is to keep me from doing stupid things over and over and over. It's really his job. I sat in a meeting that our new president, Toby Waller, had in Arizona 2 weeks ago. And I looked around the room and I went, not only now am I the oldest person, but they're all so much smarter than me. They really are. You know, I like to be in a room with guys like you, so I feel superior. And
yeah, right.
don't do that every day. Honestly, though, we have recruited and trained and promoted some of the best and brightest that I can remember our company ever really having. I've never seen a bench as strong as it is right now, and it's going to get stronger because we have to. And I don't think there's ever been a better time. If you want to raise your hand and promote,
right,
especially if you're willing to move, if you want to raise your hand, there's opportunity. And I've never seen it like this before, and it's so exciting. It really is.
Yeah. Going back to your path again, getting back on your path here at Bunzl, and
you know, like to talk about me more than I like to talk about me.
Well, okay, of course. Yeah, exactly. But you know, you're a typical, not a typical, you're a great example of what happens when you focus on what you do around here. And if you partner up with the right mentors, I think mentors and coaches are very important, and we have tons of those within Bunzl. But after 2000, I think once you convinced me to get into the food processor division, it was about a year after that you were promoted into, you took another path for Bunzl. And this is where I think your love affair with numbers kind of came into play. You were an excellent salesperson, but I always, there's a book I'm going to start reading. It's called From Strength to Strength. And it's by a gentleman by the name of Arthur Brooks, I believe. And he talks about how people, you know, throughout their lives may be really strong in one aspect, but they have other strengths. And I think yours moved from the sales into the numbers portion, which is, you know, at that time was a GM. So you went in from sales management right after, and then you got promoted to general manager. And then you had to make that transfer to Chicago. Is that correct? I can't remember. You went from here, from Southern California to.
Yeah, at the time. So let's back up a second. When I came to Bunzl, I brought sales and purchasing background, and what is one of the most unsung traits you can have is being able to manage and lead people.
Right.
Because most people, you learn, there's no class on management. You learn every day by your mistakes on how to manage people. So I brought those with me when I got here. Then I took a management role, which really was our processor gig, because like I said, nobody works directly for you. You know, you got to beg people for their time to, you know, and keep them focused. It's not easy to do.
Right.
Then after 9/11, that's when I stepped out of the processor gig, because my wife at the time, she did not want me traveling anymore. I was sitting on an airplane at Orange County Airport when that second plane hit the tower, and I'll never forget it. In fact, that day I had to drive to Las Vegas because we had to sign a contract with Simplot for all of their factories for pallet wrap. And that was it. So I took the sales manager role in Anaheim, here working for Scott Gregory and Dandy Ambrosia. And I was in that role for 10 years.
Right.
10 years. Yeah. Yeah. I only quit like 4 times. Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Coming back. Right.
But that's when you really had to do the deep dive on the Bunzl P&L. I mean, that was some of the, you know, back in 1999, 98, when I was worked for Lonnie, and there was the P&L. Then it was a 3-pager. Now it's like we said, it's like what, 8, 9, 10, 15 pages.
Yep.
It grows every day. But that, and I remember during the pandemic, and again, when I was your interim sales manager for about a year or so, you took the liberty of sharing with the upper, you know, team members on the function of a P&L. And I've never seen it, you know, the deep dive on it. I still don't get it today, however, but you know, as much as I see it and hear about it, you made it look very easy. And
it is. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, right? It is. So the big question is your staff the type of people that you can share it with? And I'm not saying it's a secret and you should hide it from, but sometimes the hardest thing to do is to show the cause and effect, show how the director of operations affects the P&L, how purchasing affects the margin and affects the balance sheet, which is how much cash we borrow from Bunzl. So you can't just have that conversation once. You have to have it monthly, because you have to, everybody learns at a different pace, so they have to learn it on their own. And it's a kind of a, even though it's dollars and cents, it's still an abstract thing that you have to learn. There's the P&L and there's the balance sheet. I'm already losing you. I can see your eyes start to
glaze.
Yeah,
right. No.
But it's the two different ways you can affect our business. And if our management team doesn't understand, the cause and effects, then me knowing it makes no difference, because we're $300 million this year. And if it comes down to me being the only one that understands how our business runs, then that's not good. It's not good at all. Yeah.
See, the way I viewed when you were going through the P&L, it wasn't so much the numbers portion. I mean, numbers are boring to me, and they are to a lot of people. However, it was your skill in orchestrating how the other department heads that were in that meeting were all part of that P&L, what your contribution is. And a lot of times you don't see that in an organization. And I think Bunzl, and knowing you and knowing where you started here, even though you brought a lot of expertise to you with this company, you were able to grow and take advantage of the knowledge that was presented to you. But it didn't stop there with you. You made it a concerted effort to orchestrate with everybody in that room that, hey, you are important, and you want to empower people. And that's what I think Bunzl teaches everybody in this organization.
Well,
right?
I'm inherently lazy by nature. I think we can both agree to that. I want my folks to own their department, own their area. If they need me to tell them what to do, then I don't have the right people in those roles. Now, I may find them and get them to that place, but if they need me to tell them what to do every day, then we got a problem, right? And I think you could sit down with anybody on my executive staff and they can tell you how they affect our success. And whether it's on the P&L or just in day to day, it doesn't really matter, right?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because of the fact that, from our management team, that's a statement Dan D'Ambrosio always brought up. And also, and, of course, Jeff that worked for Dan, it all carried down to Jeff and now to you, is that, surround yourself with great people. If you're weak in a certain area, make sure you have the best person in that. And like Dan used to say, hey, once you're assigned in food processing, you better know everything about it. Because if I have to come to you for, and answer the questions, there's no reason for you, right? So we all made ourselves experts in those areas. And that's what, a lot of people say, oh, that's kind of a tough way to look at it. But no, it's not. It's reality, man. If you don't have or spend enough time in your job daily to know and be an expert in, why are you here, right? What's your why, right? So, and I think, are you a fan of Simon Sinek? You've ever heard of Simon Sinek? He's an inspirational guy that came up with the concept about the why.
I'm sorry, Mr. Robbins, I've never heard of him.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, he was the one that, he always brought up, the importance of you as a person knowing the why. And a lot of times, companies go, well, why are we in business? Well, because we want to make money. Well, that's not the why. That's the end result of everything. It's always the end result. When you know your why, and I think Bunzl teaches you the why. They want you to, why do you come to work? What's your purpose? Why do you, why do you do what you do? And why should anybody care? And it should care to you, right? It should care to you as a person.
Exactly. Because, everybody in our building does a different task and they need to perform it the best of their ability or we're not successful. I talked to the guys in the warehouse when new selectors start, and I said, what you do is what we sell. So I need you to go to that bin. I need you to pick the right case. I need you to label it. I need you to stack it, wrap it, get it on that truck without any errors, because that's what we sell. Purchasing, I say the same thing. It's a thankless job, but good luck trying to get it. In AR, we make it a game in AR. I mean, it's a monthly ongoing battle versus us versus the customers and who's going to hold that money at the end of the month. So you can teach everybody their role. You can give them the tools to succeed, but if they don't understand why they're doing it and what their role plays in our overall success, then you're wasting your time. That's the difference between a career and a job. And we want our folks to feel like they have a career instead of just a job, because you leave jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every organization wants to retain 100% of the people that they employ, but it doesn't happen. People move on for whatever reasons they do.
For many
But
reasons.
yeah, the knowledge that you gain from, if you just listen hard enough, if you just pay attention and just do some of the things. I'll talk about some of the programs in a second, but I want to talk about the marketization. And one thing I realized about Bunzl many, many years ago, and it never has changed since, and I don't think it has, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we're not top heavy. If you want a decision made, I can go to you. I mean, I can go to you for anything. I can go to Jeff. I can go to, and everybody's accessible. If I had to talk to Jim McCool one day, I'm sure he'd pick up the phone and say, yeah, what do you need? And I'll help you. I mean, I know what protocol is, but it's not top heavy. And marketization, was that tough for you at all? The whole concept behind it?
And again, I got to come back to Southern California, and I loved it. That's where my friends are. I've known everybody here for 22 years for the most part. Right. That's where all our kids are. So to me, coming home and seeing all my old friends, I like to think I make friends at our customers. Supermarkets, I went to college with the guys at Bristol Farms. They're my friends, and we treat our business relationship as such. We go at it toe to toe. It was one of the hardest contract negotiations I ever had, but we came out and we've had that business for the next 7 years. Where was I going with this? What were we talking about?
Well, we're talking about the marketization, and
Marketizing makes sense. It does. It leverages some of our scale. We have been so lean. It's funny you say we're not top heavy. We're so lean. We've almost starved the oxygen out of the company. And right. One of the biggest and most exciting things I've seen under our new president is what he's investing in, who he's investing in, and the people we need. Sales operations. And we're a selling organization. We're not an operating cost organization. A smart man once told me you can only fire somebody once. After that, you just don't have the work. Right. So we're a top line driven selling organization, and everybody needs to remember that. So we need to put the people in place, invest in the people we need to ensure our success. And that includes investing in tools, CRM, data that can be in the hands of our sales reps. Imagine one day that you can open up Power BI and see the price of a 9L tray. And for you in food service, that's a foam meat tray, right? But you can look and see where the average selling price is nationally, and where it is regionally, and where it is in your market. It give you a much better indication of where to price it to maximize your margin. Those things excite me very much so.
And to further that point too, with all the acquisitions we have made and are continue to make throughout the years, it's important that the new people that come on, and they're very smart people that come in. I see it firsthand when we do the in-house career DPS training, dimensions and professional selling training. I get to see firsthand the people that come through the acquisitions, and we have some really bright and young and very smart people that are coming into this company, and those are the ones that we don't want to get away.
We used to be the young people, Pat.
Yeah, exactly. But we have more resources and tools today than we ever have. We have Ignite, we got Drive, we got Spark, we have everything. We have the GPS program, which is a successful program because people can take time, newbies can go in there and take a look at content that is centered around their job. It's not only sales, it's customer service, it's warehouse, it's admin.
I just went through the Excel training. I'm on my way to the third module. Yeah. Learning how
you taught it? You actually taught it, or?
No, I'm self-taught in Excel. I only know how to do like a handful of things, and it's been saving me so much time. It's funny when you actually take lessons, right?
Yeah. And that's all available now. And that's why I want to stress here, if you're young and new and been acquired, no matter what age you are here, you can learn something, about that. The virtual training that we went through too, as far as, when we made the seismic shift months ago from being in person as salespeople to now virtually, because it's real. We're really not out of the woods yet, because there's a lot of people that still don't want to see you. and you can drive down costs. They figured it out. They can drive down costs by not seeing you always in person. You can get as much production done talking virtually than you can in person. So it saves on time. But that was a shift for a lot of people, especially our seasoned professionals.
But I tell you, there's nothing like being face to face. I had a chance to make a sales call in person last month, and I didn't want it to end. I was so happy to be sitting there talking to them. I didn't want it to end because it's very easy to fire somebody over Zoom, right?
Right.
And you have to have that personal relationship. There's nothing more important. You know, you look at some of our RED competition, it's all about online orders and things like that. Got to get in front of them. You got to get in front of them. That's been our success for the last 30 years, you know?
Yeah. You just recently onboarded 2 new people in your branch or in your market area. And the importance, I guess I would say, what did you say to those guys when they, you know, the people that came on? Because here you were 20 years ago, whatever it was, back in 1999 when you came on board, 1998 when you came on, you were in sales. You had the whole future in front of you, and look where you're at today. What would you have told them? What did you tell them about their opportunities here?
It all depends on what you want to do. The beauty of our company is we're not just one thing, you know, right. And the beauty of my job is it's something different every day. You know, if today I want to run a trucking company, then I work with the warehouse guys and we talk about freight. Or if I want to look at products, or I want to search a new segment of business, some of the things we've got laying on my desk right now. Everything, if you're interested in something new, this is the place to chase it. We have that wherewithal right now. And don't be afraid to try something and fail, you know, especially out west where I hate to say it, we're used to it. We've tried a lot of things that didn't work and we move on, right? We learn from it. I told them both. I said, look, you may only be here. It may still be a job for you, but I came here for a cup of coffee back in 1998, and 24 years later, I'm still here. Right. I never in a million years would have thought so. We treat our people well. We pay them, compensate them fairly, especially here lately when we had to really step up and attract people at a whole different cost structure. And sure. I think it's fantastic.
Don't you go ahead? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Don't you think it's weird how a lot of people, when they come on, and I get this a lot too, they go, gosh, we didn't know that you guys, I mean, I came in to work for BPD, or I came in to work for the PPE company we have, and the gloves and so on. I didn't know we had a supermarket division. I didn't know you guys had a food service division, retail, food processing. I mean, and we kind of, create that atmosphere for people to go, wow, there is a lot more here than you told us about.
I have lifelong friends that still have no idea what I do for a living and what I sell, right? All they know that during the pandemic, they got toilet paper and hand sanitizer from me, and it was like a Christmas gift, right?
Yeah. I'll bring up one last subject before we end on something, but it was funny when you were talking about old friends and so on. I was talking to one of our old friends just recently. I won't mention Craig Mathiason's name, but he had brought up that when he left the company years ago, he didn't know how important his what he learned here at Bunzl was. I mean, he was able to go into a new company, totally out of the industry. He's actually selling wood products today. Right. And he said, yeah, he was able to take his experience and what he learned here 10 years ago, whatever it was when he left, and apply it to the job. And he was so far, he was light years ahead of everybody else. I mean, that's a compliment.
Well, you're talking about a very good friend of ours, as you well know. He was also a Division I athlete. He was very competitive. And every morning when he got up, how am I going to get better today?
Right.
And he would learn from watching. He would learn, nothing got past him. And he ended up taking those tools and using it to be more and more successful every time. Yeah, absolutely. That one bothers me. We let him get away, but, good luck to him.
Yeah. And, everybody has something, that carrot that they want to go after. And I think he was more on the entrepreneurial side and, which is good. But, I think, going back to what we said, seeing, just using you, there's 100 examples of Tom Driscoll in this company that, where people have excelled and gone to the top because not only because it was available, it's because you had the desire to want to get ahead, and you found your niche in this company. And that's what's important. That's what I wanted to drive home, especially on this podcast, for the people that watch it, the newbies and the people that have been acquired through other companies. There is so much opportunity here, but you have to have the desire to want to seek it out, right? And you have plenty of mentors and coaches.
Right. The desire to seek it out is exactly, raise your hand. Raise your hand. Let your supervisor, your manager, let somebody know you're interested, because they're not going to come ask you, right? That's not their job. But if you're interested, raise your hand, throw your hat in the ring, and make sure people know that's the path you want to be on, because we'll start you down that path. If I had a really, really successful buyer who wanted to move into a different area, and I thought he or she had the tools to do so, I'd much rather have that person stay with Bunzl in a different role,
right,
than try and protect that person and keep them only doing the buying job for me in this market, when they could be, 10 times more successful, helping us nationally or in another role. But I want to keep them in the organization. There's so many places around the world you can go work. And come on, move to Australasia, move to New Zealand, and still work for Bunzl and keep all your vacation time. Jeez, you can't go wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, and it's up to you to seek that out. And you have to be the one, especially all the training and all the avenues we give you to become successful. But like anybody else, says, you have to have the motivation to do that. So I'll give you the last word, Tom. Anything you want to add?
I thought you had I thought there was a lightning round when you were going to ask me a bunch of questions. I was studying all night. Right?
You were studying all night. I can do
that.
No,
that's okay. That's okay. If, I worked for a lot of bad managers, and I worked for a lot of great leaders.
Right.
And there is a big difference. It's having your back. We both work for the same folks that they would defend us to anyone, no matter how wrong we were. But then in private, they'd sit you down and go, okay, you really screwed up there. Right. But nobody else, it's kind of like having a younger brother. Nobody else gets to pick on that person but me. Right.
Exactly.
And when you know that you're being, I shouldn't say protected, but when you know that somebody's got your best interests at heart, they'll do great things. They really will. I would rather be known as the last thing I ever want to be known as is, and we've all heard this before, well, you should get to know him away from work. Away from work, he's a really good guy. Well, why shouldn't you be a good guy that the time you spend at work?
Right.
Come on. Right. People buy from people. It's a people business. And the more your employees know how much you care about them, the more you'll get out of them without even asking. That's just all there is to it. I'd rather be known as a good guy. Yeah.
In that lightning round, I usually ask, what would give me a success story, but your success story you just talked about. You talked the whole time about how, well, I brought it, it's how successful you can be if you just apply yourself, and that's your success story. And no one's told you.
Which is what every teacher I ever had said I didn't do. I never applied myself.
Bunzl pushed you. So
yes.
Tom.Driscoll at bunzlusa.com. I appreciate the time. I know you're a very busy man. And I thank you for joining me on this podcast. I think there's a lot of nuggets in there for people that they want to listen to it and hear it. You've dropped some good nuggets there. So thank you.
Again, I still can't believe you and I are doing a podcast.
And we've recorded it.